Mayoral Memo with Matthew Dickinson from Dubbo Regional Council.
You're listening to Tony Graham on Binjang 91.5, and today I have Matthew Dickinson on the line from Dubbo, and I'm in Studio 2, and we're going to be talking about the outcomes of the Ordinary Council meeting held on Thursday evening. Now, Matthew, I know you've been on your bike with the Tour de Europe, and it's been hard to get you, but at last we have, and thank you for your time on a Sunday.
My pleasure, Tony. Always good to chat. And yes, I do apologise. It has been a bit hard to get me out on the bike. Reception hasn't been perfect in some of the areas that we've been riding through, but back in Dubbo now, happy to say, in one piece. Well, I don't know if it's all in one piece because parts will be a bit worn out.
Okay, well, let's hop straight into it. Now, the first thing you want to raise is, I think, that the Binjang Wind Farm Fund recipients.
Yeah, that's right. So there's $73,000 in the Binjang Wind Farm Community Benefit Fund for this year. And as you know, the concept there is that various renewable projects have to enter into planning agreements with council, and then we are responsible for handing out money to different organisations with a whole range of different rules associated with that. The good part about this one is the applications came in, lots of applications came in, and I'm happy to announce the 8 different organisations that received a share of that money. Red Cross Australia Wellington branch received 990, Wellington Senior Citizens 3,256, Wellington Menshed 2,450, Arana Support Service 18,000, Wellington Eisteddfod Society 9,421, Wellington Amateur Swimming Club 9,588, and Rotary Club of Wellington, New South Wales received 20,000, and Binjang Community Radio received $9,295.
Well, what a surprise. And I have to say thank you very much for that. I might add that it was fairly much oversubscribed because I've also have a list before me of those people that missed out. So unfortunately for them, but it was quite amazing the amount of oversubscription that occurred, particularly in money terms this time round.
And one of the things, Tony, I think that's important for people to understand is that this is just a very small amount of the benefit we'll see as we keep these various renewable projects rolling out. Different ones, particularly wind farms, to a lesser extent solar farms and batteries, but they're all contributing money in some form of community benefit fund. And that's aimed in the area about where that particular project is. But this money is going to keep increasing and keep rolling out into the Wellington community. The important part for us as a council and even the entire community is to make sure we use this money in a way that helps the community long term and gives benefits to the community long term. So it is pretty exciting with this money flowing through.
Yeah, well, there's certainly a need for it because when I look at this list, I see there's roughly around about $135,000 worth of green applications that weren't successful. So it's good news to think that we'll get better money streams for supporting the community down the track.
Exactly right, and that's what we really want to see from all of these various renewable projects. We'll be providing power, Tony, for 42% of the state, and I only think it's fair and reasonable that the benefit gains some financial outcome, financial benefit from all these projects. Okay.
Now, one of the other really big announcements that's been happening that we've got on the news, in fact, is the situation with Alkane Resources and their, well, the main company is by a different name, but it's all part of the same organisation. Now, Alkane Resources are doing a lot of work with gold in this area, but of course, at Toongai, which is kind of wedged in between Dubbo and Wellington to some extent, there's a big mine proposition happening there by the looks of it because the United States government has weighed in looking to support that development by actually $1.12 billion going forward. So that would be a real impetus to starting that mine. They're after all the elements, you might say micro elements that are scarce on the market because China's cornered the market and then not supplying the United States with some of those critical elements for their production of electronics and lots of different things. So that's a fairly big development, very promising, isn't it?
Looking very promising. It's probably been a little bit frustrating, Tony, that it's probably been next year or in 2 years' time that this mine will start for the last 10 years. So it's getting closer and closer. The biggest problem they have is they need a large amount of money guaranteed, or a large potential money, if you like, in terms of debt or in terms of guaranteed contracts to be able to go ahead. Now, you're right, there's a couple of announcements there. Export Finance Australia has already said they've got access to a couple of $100 million with them if they can secure other money they need. The Export-Import Bank of the United States has said they've got a debt funding package of up to $600 million US for the construction execution phase of the rare earths. So these are all good signs, Tony. This is a polymetallic deposit. So you've got a range of light and heavy earth rare earths. You've got zirconium, niobium, hafnium, a whole range of other ones that are hard to pronounce, neodymium, praseodymium, terbium, dysprosium. So there's a few different ones in there, and I might have even pronounced some of those correctly, Tony. So there's a range of ones there. This is known as the Dubbo project under the Australian Strategic Minerals. These are the companies, so they've broken that off away from Alkane. But this is particularly exciting. And one of the things that's really exciting about this project, Tony, is that it's a mine, but only a smaller number of the people that will be employed in this project will be miners. The rest will be in the processing plant. So many times in Australia we mine the ore, the raw ore, and then we send it all overseas to be processed. But the processing will occur here, and so that processing plant will employ the majority of the people. They're probably higher paid, higher skilled than some of the miners, and again, it just injects more people, more money into our economy. So a very exciting project. I'm actually off to South Korea, and one of the reasons for that is because of Australian Strategic Minerals, looking at arranging a sister city relationship with one of the cities over there that's an important part of this. ASM actually has an office, a processing or mini processing plant in Chengdu, and so we're looking to establish some sort of relationship to continue this relationship going forward with that economic base. So very exciting for Dubbo Regional Council.
It certainly is. So now there's other things happening around the LGA, and some developments. There is a development happening with the livestock centre, isn't there?
Absolutely right. Livestock market is owned by council still, and there's a few livestock markets around the state that are still owned by local councils. So, for example, Wagga and Forbes are still owned by the local council. Corowa, Griffith, Gunnedah and Cowra are all owned by the local council. But you're getting to the stage now, when you look across the top 10 or 15 livestock markets for sheep and cattle across the state, you're finding more and more of these are either privately owned or long-term leased to private organisations. And we thought it was time for us to have a look at the market to see the best way to manage and run those, what's the best outcome for the community. And we're going to do an EIA process for the sale or lease of those markets. It doesn't mean we'll go ahead with it. What we want to do is see what's out there in the market, to see what potential there is out there in the market, and compare that to what we're getting now and the way it's run now, and either go down that sale or lease path or fine-tune what we're doing now.
Okay. Wellington Family and Domestic Violence Collective, did they get the $7,500 through the Community Services Fund Round 2, would you know?
Correct. So there was the Community Services Fund, and the round 2, as you said there, we allocated $22,867 to 5 different organisations. One of those was the Wellington Family and Domestic Violence Collective. $7,500 will be received by that organisation.
Well, $7,500, that's fantastic. Also, the report for the Wellington Town Committee came down, so what is the outcome of that?
I think this is working really well, Tony, the Town Committee giving feedback for what Wellington people want in the Wellington Township. And so one of the recommendations from the Wellington Town Committee that went to Council for us to discuss and debate, and then we finally resolved to basically look at the reallocation of the $5,000 funding that had been allocated to the Rhino Renewal Project, and instead put that into the Sunken Garden Project. Now, that's one thing that we've looked at before to say the Rhino was great when it was in Wellington, but is that what the people of Wellington actually want? And with feedback we received from that Wellington Town Committee, the feedback was, no, we'd rather something different, and the Sunken Garden seemed to be the project that was preferred over having the Rhino replaced or renewed in the main street of Wellington. So that was, I think, a good opportunity to see some feedback from the Wellington Town Committee to deliver exactly what Wellington wants.
Yeah, fantastic. Matthew, again, thank you for your time on a Sunday and in the middle of doing the tour. Right, you've been a very busy man, and it's been very difficult for you to maintain your mayoral duties, in between. I understand that. And so we're very grateful. Thank you.
My pleasure, Tony. Always my pleasure to talk to you about council.
Mayoral Memo with Matthew Dickinson from Dubbo Regional Council.